Good evening, everyone. My name's James, and tonight I have the immense privilege to talk you through The Future is Electric on behalf of Porsche Bournemouth. And it's been a pleasure to be invited by everyone at Beaulieu, and I look forward to sharing with you the limited knowledge I have, although hopefully it's enough to get us through the next 40 minutes, and certainly my enthusiasm and passion for the Porsche brand. So without further ado, let's move on and take a look at what the upcoming kind of future is, really. So you may know, you may not, but Porsche have a history with electricity. So in 1898 to 1900, Lohner and Porsche, if you're pronouncing it correctly, presented the Electromobile in the Paris Motor Show, or the show that preceded the Paris Motor Show. And at the time, and this is in the 1900s, it had two electro hubs, which if you look at the picture, that looks a bit like a boat on the left-hand side. They are the hubs down in the front drive. Now they produced a whopping 2.5 PS, or as close to HP as you can get, per motor, giving it a top speed at the time of 37 kilometers, which would have been frightening to see coming hurtling down a poorly prepared road. We also then went on to talk and design and produce and manufacture electric hybrids. So the hybrids were the Panamera hybrid and the Cayenne hybrid later on, and then later on we turned them into plug-in hybrids. And the difference between those two is that one hybrid is sort of self-run from an engine, and the other one actually draws electricity into the car, stores it, and then uses it later on in the drive. And then a lot of you may know our supercar. So the 918 Spyder Hybrid, a whopping 875 brake horsepower, Newton meters torque of 1280. One of the most iconic Porsches I think I've ever seen in my life. I joined Porsche probably about the same sort of time. So, you know, was well beyond my grasp of kind of what the reality of a hypercar was. Yeah, certainly very proud of that car in the Porsche brand. As with all things Porsche, we tend to find most of our performance, most of our engineering, most of our efficiencies in motorsport. So, you know, you'll be familiar with win a race on a Sunday, sell a car on a Monday. Well, it's a bit deeper than that for Porsche. For a long time, Porsche have used racing to test ideas, throw them out if they're no good, fix ideas and make them more efficient. And we have been very successful in our motorsport career, and particularly with hybrid. The 919 winning Le Mans 24-hour racing, I think 3 times. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain it is 3 times. So what are we here to talk about today? Well, motorsport's all well and good, and it's very exciting, and it does give us the edge of testing everything to the very, very limit. But we are also very proud to offer electric cars to our customers. It can't just be an electric car, because Porsche has to be a sports car. And with 70 years of history of making what we consider to be the very best sports cars that you can use every day with intelligent performance. So what I mean by that is they're not frightening to drive. They will just as easily go to Waitrose and pick up a bottle of wine as they will tear down to the south of France through kind of mountain passes. What we mean is that there's a lot of expectation when you bring a new product to the market and you put the Porsche badge on it. So for everyone in the whole Porsche family, the Taycan represents a real statement. And we actually started talking about this car in 2015 under the name Mission E. So the picture that you're looking at in the front here is a concept car. So what I'm hoping is when I show you the real car in a second, when it's just behind me, you'll see that Porsche's concept is very close to the reality. The only thing that we couldn't make work probably was the suicide doors, which is a shame because they looked amazing. but intelligent performance meaning that we have to make something that actually works. Sometimes those concepts get thrown away. So the Taycan name comes actually from a blend of two Turkish terms, and it means the soul of the spirited young horse. And for those fortunate enough to have driven a Porsche Taycan, I think everyone sort of gets out of that car thinking that's a pretty good explanation of what it does. And I'll come on to why later on. So now's probably a good time to just stop the video and introduce you to myself, and also wait, and we'll just talk for a little bit about our passion for the Porsche brand, and then we'll go for a bit further of a deep dive into the Porsche Taycan. So hello, I'm James.
Hi James.
Hopefully you can see me now, and you can see the Taycan in the background with its lights on, saying hello.
Yeah, it looks very good. So welcome everybody. My name is Wei Man Chong, and I'm on the council of the Beaulieu 100 Club. And we had a meeting some months back. We were discussing events that we could run, and we talked about the future being electric. So I spoke to Porsche of Bournemouth, and James kindly volunteered that he would talk about their electric vehicle, which, as you know, is the Taycan. I was interested to hear about the soul of a spirit of a horse. I didn't know that, actually, so I've learned something tonight. Now, I actually am a big petrol head, I'm afraid. That's my confession. So, and I'm old enough now that I can die driving petrol cars. But let me tell you, I have driven this Taycan. It is an awesome machine. It drives like a Porsche, and it is off the scale. But anyway, James can tell a little bit more about that in a short while. And I have owned a hybrid as well, a Cayenne hybrid, which was very nice. But as I said, I'm a petrol head. I've gone back petrol, but there you go. So we're delighted that you're here tonight, James. And we've already had a few questions that have come through on the chat room, which we'll deal with at the end. And if anyone else wants to let us have any more, then please do let me have those, and we'll filter through some. But I know we're aiming from a housekeeping point of view to sort of finish around 7:30 later, so we won't keep you too late. But this is a nice way, I think, to start the weekend, and it's great in this new norm that we can have events like this, which are interesting, that so many of you turn up, which we're delighted. Yeah, let's go, James. Let's carry on. Thank you.
Cool. What Wade didn't tell you there is the reason we're finishing at 7:30 is because he's picking up his fish and chips, and that's obviously taking a precedence in this. But yeah, I am delighted to be here and explain the car. I'll answer all the questions that you might have, but as Wade's touched upon there is no getting away from the fact that there is no petrol engine in this car. Therefore, the sound that we all enjoy, whether it be a flat six, a V8, a W12, even a straight four with turbos and intercoolers, that's gone. And what I'm going to try and show you is that is a very important part of history for us, and for many brands, and for everyone that enjoys driving cars. but the driving experience isn't. It hasn't gone, you know, and just like I watch with absolute fascination, you know, that some of the elite drivers, you know, doing their craft on a Sunday or a Saturday when they do their racing. And I'm very lucky I get to talk to a lot of them, you know, and they talk about the differences between the older kind of Porsche and the new Porsche, and even the new Porsche Formula E cars, and how the different driving styles need to be kind of managed. It does represent a very, very big step in the future, and I'll come on to that. Okay, so I've sort of alluded to it in that kind of in that short monologue. The government and globally have recognised that there are emissions coming out of the back of the car. Who knew? So from a perspective of legislation, all manufacturers now, irrelevant of whether you're a sports car brand, you know, a city car brand, a brand that does, you know, 200 cars, or a brand that does, you know, 200,000 cars, they are asking us as manufacturers to phase out the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. So there's a window. So by 2030, everything has to be either a hybrid with a yet to be defined range where you have to get there with zero emissions coming out, so an electric car. And by 2035, there can be no other kind of drive in the car where there are no emissions. And for now, what most manufacturers have landed upon is that electricity is the common currency. So, you know, a little bit like the internet, most houses have access to electricity, whether it be single phase, triple phase. All businesses have access to electricity, more or less. And whether that's a 3-phase or a DC charging, they've used that currency, for want of a better expression of it, to say, okay, well, if people need mobility, which is, you know, the process of moving one place to another, and we are not allowed to create emissions, then we will just use the electricity that is already in. People will say that the emissions will go further up the chain, quite rightly too, but, you know, frankly, that's not for us to worry about tonight. For us, what we can do is talk about how exciting the technology is, and hopefully you guys will get to experience it over the next, indeed, some of you may be driving electric cars already. So let's have a look at an electromotive powertrain. For me, the first time I saw this, it reminded me of my remote control car when I was a young kid. You know, motors either end between the axle because it made sense for weight and, you know, making drive work. Obviously, you've got steering at the front, and then all the electrical components in the middle. So take that a step further. You know, think about a Lego car that comes, you know, as a kid's toy. It's wheels at each end, and then a platform in the middle, and you can build whatever you want on it. If you can build, you know, a big 4x4 on it, or you can put a little sports car on it. So for us, it's very much the same, although I've massively oversimplified it. And if one of the Porsche engineers and designers ever got hold of me, I'm sure they'd wring my neck. But we've got a flat chassis, which is very low to the ground. And in that chassis, the guys have been very clever, and girls have been very clever in building the battery into those components. And if you were to look between 3 and 2, you'll see that there's almost like 2 cutouts. And that's for the rear passenger feet to drop into. So if you imagine from 1, 3 to 2, you know, as a driver, your legs are sort of slightly laid out in front of you. As a passenger, your legs are slightly laid out in front of you. But as a rear passenger, your legs sort of pop down. So that's why they've been cut out from there. So we've got 3-phase motors. So we are all about the electric in this car. We've got high voltage battery, so lithium ion, and that battery is very complicated. But the reason it's so complicated is to create efficiency and usability. So instead of one of those big components being defunct if something were to kind of wear out, inside those battery casings are lots of little battery sleeves, so that if one of those components you know, suffered some degradation or wasn't so great, then later on in the car's life, 2, 3 years, 4 years down the line, one of our Porsche engineers will be able to take that apart, just replace the little sleeve, and then the car goes back onto the road. So there's no big concerns about if the battery fails, this whole big battery unit needs to be thrown in the bin and starts again. And then we've got power electronics. So I have been lucky enough to spend a lot of time with the car and a lot of time with some people that know an awful lot more about this than I do. So 8 hours in a classroom learning about power electronics was thrilling, but there is a lot of information that I won't cascade this evening in making sure that everyone is able to kind of enjoy it, and also it's just not relevant. You need to drive it and experience the car. Wow. Okay. The car, the Taycan, is incredible. So it's everything you expect a Porsche to be. So, and please don't feel sorry for me, but I was lucky enough to be flown to Mallorca to learn about this car. So I spent probably 4 days in beautiful ambient weather with some amazing views, incredible five-star hotel, and a selection of 100 to 150,000 pound Porsche Taycans. It was a tough week. Now, what I was worried about when I went over there was, okay, a range of 200 miles. So my journey from Hedge End to work every single day is about 36, 37 miles. I'm constantly on power because I'm constantly doing motorway speeds. And when I get here, I've got to park away from work because we're fairly residential here. So I wouldn't have any charging aspects. So let's imagine for a second, and my wife's not on this call, so I can say this. Let's imagine for a second I brought a Taycan. How would that work for me? How would I actually make that car work? So the reality to that answer is that electrical infrastructure is not quite at its peak capability yet. So we talk about you can charge an electric Taycan from 5% battery charge to 80% battery charge, which is broadly about 200 miles. In the highest capacity charger, we can get that done in 24 minutes. That's pretty cool. 24 minutes for 200 miles, take that all day long. But actually, when you think a little bit deeper about electricity and where you're going to charge it and what people actually do with their daily drives, for most people, and this is where we come to point one, for most people, charging at home is going to be the most convenient, cheapest, most efficient way of moving around. And the reason I say that is because I get in from work, well, not tonight, but I get in from work usually about 7 o'clock at night, at which point my car stays completely dormant until I leave for work at 7 o'clock in the morning. So there is 12 hours where the car's parked on my driveway and it is simply not doing anything. It's not on, it's not using any energy. So I was lucky enough to have an electric Golf for about 6 or 7 months. And during that time, what I realized was actually you put the Golf on charge at home, every day I go out to my electric Golf, electric Taycan in the perfect world. Every day I go out to my electric car and it's got 100% worth of fuel. Tonight, I know that my Passat Hybrid that I go home in has got a range of about 50 miles. The reality is I'm not going to fill that up because I'm going to go home and then I'll fill it up on the way to work when I come back to work tomorrow, actually. So from a perspective of would I like to start my day with 100% battery charge or 100% fuel in my car? Absolutely, I can. So let's go to the next stage. Let's imagine that I can't charge at home. Let's imagine, you know, I live in a flat, or I live in a listed building or a cottage or something or other, and the house just simply won't facilitate the charging of my Taycan. So what a lot of people are doing now is they're having charging at work or offices. A lot of employers are trying to encourage people to be more green, and they can use single or triple phase electricity at work. So for most people, they are working and leaving their car at some point, and then we would be able to charge their car in that facility. Going on a further step, I have a client who picked up a Taycan a week ago. And they are going on a short trip around the UK soon, and they asked me for some help in terms of planning that trip for chargers. So we had a quick look at the Ionity network. We also had a look at Porsche centres. So they actually today arrived at Porsche Tunbridge Wells, where we've got 4 Porsche chargers with DC charging. They set off from here, arrived there, and set up their charging, and they were able to kind of move around the country. And then also we have things like destination charging. So Porsche are working with places that you and I might like to go. So we might go to a nice hotel, we might go to a nice vineyard, we might go to a nice Rick Stein's. We might find all these lovely places where we can go, and Porsche will have some chargers there for their customers to use and go through. Now that's the reality as it sits today. I've seen lots of adverts on the TV from Shell and BP talking about how they're going to change the planet and how they're going to overhaul their petrol stations to create DC energy. And the reality of that is that as we create demand, they will then give us the supply. So if you imagine that we will phase out petrol, they will want to create a margin out of something. So they'll take electricity and make it convenient, and because it's convenient for us and we can get it quickly and we can put it into our car quite quickly, for those of us that are lazy, which is me, by the way, I would go off, I would use that and not necessarily be too worried about the cost. But what's important about this slide and what's important about electrification is that I would say 85 to 90% of people will simply arrive home, plug their Taycan in, and it will charge itself. I'm gonna just stay on this slide for a second. In fact, I'm gonna stop the screen share because I just want to kind of just talk about this just a little bit longer. So the Taycan, the electric Porsche, drives like a Porsche. So when you lift off the throttle, it doesn't immediately start to recuperate its energy. It is recuperating its energy because as the engine slows down, it's starting to force electricity back through, and it's recycling itself. But when you're driving this amazing car, it is driving exactly like perhaps one of our Panameras or our 911s, in that when you lift off the throttle, the car will gently either start to coast, depending on the mode you're in, whether in Sport Plus or a different gearbox mode, or if you're in a driving dynamic mode, as you lift off, it will start to simulate engine braking. But some electric cars, the moment you lift off the throttle, like a Dodgem, it just slows down, just starts to kind of recuperate energy. So in that video that we just watched, there was lots of different things. So I've talked about how you pump electricity into the Taycan, but the Taycan's doing things all the time as well, just to recycle its energy, not expend that much energy, be very efficient on the road. There's drag coefficiency, so how much air it moves as it's moving through is very slippery. It really is a massive engineering feat from Porsche to make a car that they're very, very proud of, that we're very proud of, and drives exactly like a Porsche should.
Der Sound eines Sechszylinder-Boxermotors von Porsche hat eigentlich schon Heritage und legendären Status. Es hat es nicht einfacher gemacht, einen Sound für ein Elektrofahrzeug zu entwickeln, weil natürlich der Wunsch eines jeden Sounddesigners da ist, ein ähnliches für ein Elektrofahrzeug zu schaffen. Wir haben jetzt das erste Elektrofahrzeug mit einem wirklich unverwechselbaren Sound. Und wenn man die beiden Worte Sound und Fahrzeug in den Mund nimmt, landet man unweigerlich bei Porsche. Ich bin Sachgebietsleiter Active Sound Design und mein Job ist es, unsere elektrischen Fahrzeuge nach Porsche klingen zu lassen. Als kleines Kind war es schon so. Wenn ich damals einen Elva gehört habe, war ich immer begeistert von diesem markanten, kraftvollen Sound eines Sportwagens. Jeder Porsche hat eigentlich einen unverkennbaren Sound. Durch die verschiedenen Motorisierungen und Baureihen hat jeder seinen eigenen Charakter. Und auch das wollen wir für den Taycan erreichen. Wir haben hier ein zweistufiges System. Zum einen der Pflichtteil, der in einem niedrigen Geschwindigkeitsbereich aktiv ist. Wenn der Fahrer es aber möchte, hat er die Möglichkeit, sich einen Porsche Electric Sport Sound hinzuzuschalten, womit das Feedback des Fahrzeuges akustisch untermalt wird. Der Sound des Taycan ist eine Teamarbeit. Es ist nicht nur von uns Sounddesignern eine Leistung, sondern von der gesamten Akustikabteilung und der gesamten Entwicklung. Ich bin gespannt, wie dieser Sound in 50, 60, 70 Jahren sein wird, dieses Fahrzeuges auf Oldtimer-Treffen.
So, emotion. Every time you hear or see an old Porsche come past in the service centre, and we have a lot of Porsche royalty visitors, really, whether it be 964, 930, Super Sport. We had a Carrera GT visit the other day. We have a 911R more recently. Those cars create an emotion for me and virtually all the team here, really, and customers alike. And what's interesting about that video, aside from the fact that I don't speak German, so I was very much reading the subtitles, is the passion that goes into thinking about what a car looks like in the future. So when it's a classic, so we're 72 years into Porsche at the moment, you know, and he was talking about the longevity of his design and their contribution to the Porsche legacy and heritage. The Porsche electric sound in the car creates the emotion. So, hopefully when we get the opportunity to release the shackles of lockdown and go back to whatever the new normal looks like, we'll be able to visit Beaulieu with some Taycan and show people that are interested and talk them around it. And equally, from our point of view, we have a £10 million business being built just down the road from us here. We've enjoyed being Headland and Deeks and Chapelgate, and for anyone that's visited here, it's a absolutely a place that's full of history, but it's too small for us now. You know, the audience that we invite with Porsche expect to be able to park their car and expect to be able to kind of see the entire model range. So the investment that we're creating is to create an environment where people can enjoy the brand for many, many years to come. So what does the future hold for Porsche? Well, we've talked about electricity. I've talked about, not we, sorry, I've rattled on about how great the Taycan is, and hopefully you guys will get to experience that for yourselves at some point in the future if you're interested. We talked about motorsport, so we're going into Porsche Formula E. So that is another output for us, where we'll get people far cleverer than me with greater ideas about trying to create efficiency, Porsche dynamics, driving, and technology that we can all enjoy later on when it's been tested and developed. Sustainability. So we are taking manufacturing very, very seriously. The factories that are being built and the resources that are being built are being built in a really sustainable manner, and we're trying to create a zero carbon footprint while enjoying all of the history that we have and all the history that we hope to enjoy in the future. And electric plays a big part in that. So we talked about the Taycan, which is our first electric car, even though we've had electric hybrids and the one from the 1900s, which was a little bit slower than we'd probably expect to see out on the roads today. We have just released the Cross Turismo, which is a slightly like an estate, a sport tourer version of our Taycan, a bit more space in the back. It has a bike rack that you can use. It has a bit more clearance underneath it. So if you're going down some sort of country tracks and things. The next derivative of our Macan, so one of our more popular or most popular cars actually, will be fully electric, or we'll have an electric derivative for them. And then we will have an electric Boxster or an electric Cayman, so electric two-seater sports car coming through the range, which opens the door for hybrid 911 and all sorts of performance models after that. So we're very much committed to being part of the future, as well as not forgetting any of our past, and enjoying the brand for what it is, which is a fascination brand, and more importantly, a sports car brand. So what I'd like to do, if it's all right, is play you one more video of our newest electric Porsche that's been released, and then open the floor to any questions.
Well, James, that was excellent. I really enjoyed that, and some great facts came out about these amazing cars. I'm going to actually put this up and show you this, people, because this is the model of the 919 Hybrid that won at Le Mans, and it's from this car, the sort of technology in motorsport, that we get this, the Taycan and the Taycan Cross Turismo. Now, if I was forced to take a car that you gave me, it would be the Cross Turismo. I really like it, and I think when you put an 8-cylinder in there, then I'm on. But I don't think it's going to happen. So let's look at some of the sort of questions that came up. One was really about recycling, James. How many, you know, what goes on with regards to this, you know, parts, and, you know, how much of it is from recycling, and yeah.
Okay, so I don't actually know the answer to that question. It's a really good question in terms of, I guess the depth of the question is are we using recyclable materials? Are we creating sustainable materials? And that may be more related to battery content rather than actual kind of panels and things that are you know, are widely recyclable anyway. So is it? Can I plead the fifth on that?
No, it just came up.
I mean, what I can tell you about this Taycan is that we, you know, we're taking the environmental responsibility more seriously now. So I'm not saying that we never took it seriously, but, you know, as time develops, we now offer vegan alternatives. So we offer an interior that doesn't have any animal leather in it, for instance.
Really, that's interesting.
We offer a replacement for so a sport tex material that used to be an Alcantara, which is a rough leather. We now have a synthetic version of that. So actually, in terms of that whole ecology, it isn't a buzzword or a marketing tool for us. It's actually something that we live and breathe. But what's important is that we have a moment in time where we're still celebrating our history, and we have clients that have been with us for, you know, nearly all of our 70 years and have enjoyed that bespoke nature of building their very own Porsche with all of the kind of facets that make it unique and individual. So we don't want to alienate or change too much. We want to evolve and make sure that all of our clients are able to enjoy the brand. Both new clients who will be fascinated by the electric car and, you know, will kite surf. My knees won't take kite surfing, I don't think, anymore.
I think I've got some more questions coming through, so I'll try and get into those in a second. Yeah, it's interesting. I was on an investment fund manager conference a couple of days ago, and he was talking about fuel, BP, Shell, stocks like that. And he talked about how they are developing a way, obviously, to eventually come to fuels that are carbon neutral. So it's quite interesting. And, you know, because it's easy to think, oh, I won't hold Shell in a portfolio because, you know, what's the future? Well, actually, they are investing in their future to make, it's all about sustainability. And I found it interesting that on your superchargers that you can charge it 80% in about 24 minutes. So in some petrol stations, it takes that long to fill my K-end. So, you know, that's pretty good. But the $1 million question that came up, of course, is how much? How much would one of these machines cost me?
Okay, so anything from £70,690 today would get you into a Taycan like you can see just behind me here, right the way up to 165. And really what the difference between those figures is, as well as being like quite a substantial amount of money, is that the Taycan rear-wheel drive is the entry into our range. So think about us as a sports car brand. We love rear-wheel drive. We have got weight balanced in the middle now. Actually, the Taycan won the world record for the most donuts, the most drift circles done quite recently. And then you can add things like a performance battery. So a battery that has slightly more cells gives you a slightly longer range, gives you slightly quicker acceleration times, because the Taycan rear-wheel drive is no slouch at 5.4 0 to 60. But if you're looking for something with a lot of punch, then our Taycan Turbo S gets from 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. So, you know, think about our flagship 911 Turbo S, 2.7 seconds. Having been in one of those cars doing 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds, it's the most terrifying things in the world. I don't know why you would do it ever, but you know, we have the capability to be able to sell you that off the floor now. 150,000, 138,000 pounds, plus a few options, drive it away. You can have all of that Formula performance if you wish. From a charging cost perspective, which might have been part of the question, they say it's like 11p a mile to drive an electric car, because what you're paying at home if you charge for 90% of customers overnight, it's probably to fill a Taycan to get a 200-mile range, probably 15-16 pound.
That's pretty good.
Incredible, isn't it? You know, that's a splash in a GT3, isn't it? Really, it's not getting too far on that.
So another one that's come up is about depreciation. You know, what is at the moment the experience so far with these cars? If someone bought one when they first launched, how are they finding the values standing up?
That's a good question. It's a good question. So in 2020, when we released them, so just before the first lockdown, I suppose, we actually, real world, we had a client collect a fully spec Taycan Turbo, broadly £131,000, white, so Mission E spec, exactly like that first picture that we saw looking out over the beach. You know, really, really nice car. We just sold that car today for 121, so £9,000 in 12 months. Yeah. So pretty good. I couldn't afford to lose £9,000 in 12 months, but actually on a car, that's not too far.
No, that's not bad at all. I'm surprised actually. I thought it would be much lower than that.
Well, Ben, thank you very much for allowing me to ask a question. James, I'm enjoying your talk enormously. I've driven an electric car now for 3 years, and I think one of the points that you might want to make is you'd never go back. Once you've done it, it may be a big take, but you'd never go back. Secondly, don't forget at Beaulieu, we have a range of electric charging points. And the last time I was at Beaulieu, there were 2 cars with Belgian number plates. And so they felt sufficiently confident to do a journey like that. But I think that the big question I wanted to ask you is, I think that the future is all electric. I don't think the future is hybrid, because I think some people think that's cheating, because do you actually spend all day just driving around on the petrol engine and never bother to recharge it? James, what is your view on that?
For my point of view, the hybrid element of it was a good idea, you know, and it solved some problems. So, for instance, you know, my wife's journey is very different to mine. So, you know, if she was just doing 10 miles a day and she charged her hybrid every single night, like lots of our clients do, they move from charging point to out and about and then come back. It's very easy to use a hybrid engine just on the electric element of it. However, as you rightly say, if you take my journey, which is hedging motorway a lot, do I charge my Passat hybrid ever? No. So am I cheating? Yes. Am I getting the benefit of a lower benefit in kind tax, a perception of being environmentally friendly? Am I just using the petrol engine? I absolutely am, and there's no way of denying it. And you know, that's my personal experience. But I think it was a really good technology at the time, and it did lower emissions slightly for some. But you're right, it is for me, it's a cheat. So I agree with you completely, Christopher. And I think the government do as well, which is kind of why they've gone like, right, okay, well, by 35, everything's got to have 0 emissions out of it, but we'll give you a 5-year window where you can kind of cheat a bit if customers are really, if the infrastructure is not there. And actually, like you found for 3 years, once you get over that first leap and you go, right, actually, I'm just going to go for it, you know, I don't think you'd ever look back.
Brilliant. I have another question here, James. If you half the power to say 400 PS, would you be able to increase the range?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So there's lots of things happening in a car, and it is sort of that simple. You know, if I drove Wade's GT RS, because I am by definition a chicken, I probably wouldn't go above 70 miles per hour, and I've very light and gentle right foot. So for me, I could probably eke out quite a good performance out of a high performance vehicle, but I wouldn't be driving that car to its full potential, and I wouldn't be driving quickly, and I wouldn't be hitting apexes, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. So when we drive a Taycan, the reason we create such a different range is that if I was to drive in range mode, what it allows me to do is I select a mode in the Taycan, or probably any electric car really, they probably all do this, and it says, right, I'm not going to let you go above 60 miles per hour unless you really stamp on the throttle because you need to get out of the way or something. I'm going to turn the air conditioning down, so I'm going to take less power from the battery to make your environment nicer. I'm not going to let you turn the heated steering wheel on. I'm not going to give you full heated seat motion, because what I want to do is I want to create the most amount of miles out of this range. But there's no denying in a Taycan, that's 2.5 tons. It's big. And we've made it slippery through the air. We really have. And we've made a lot of technology to recuperate a lot of the energy. So it's very efficient when it's kind of transitioning between speeds. But really, weight is a big thing in any car. If we wanted to get a 400-mile range, we either need a bigger battery capacity, so we need a bigger car. We're going to have bigger weight, or we need to go for a slightly different technology. So I hope that answers the question. The people always ask me as well, like my Tesla can do 350 miles. Cool, yeah, no problem. You know, and if you are doing 350 miles a day and you need to charge quickly at this time, it's difficult to kind of come round that argument, other than to say our Taycan is incredible. Show me where you're driving 350 miles a day. I'll show you a fast charger. And in the car is telling you where different chargers are. So the reason a lot of people get hung up on electricity, and Christopher will back this up, is that some charger points are slower than others. So rate of charge is really important. So sometimes it's better to drive 10 miles off your journey to save yourself half an hour of your total journey, because the 10 miles takes you to a faster charger that gets you back on the road much quicker. So you're not.
And it will tell you that in the system, will it?
Yeah. So in the navigation system, like we're all used to now, yeah. Stop at Wimpy's, you want to stop at Burger King. Did you know that there's a restaurant nearby? Actually, our charging point says the Porsche charging system. It will say, right, okay, I want to go to Edinburgh. That's where I want to go. I want to go and watch the military tattoo. I want to go to the Fringe Festival, wherever I want to go. And it will plan my journey. It'll say, okay, so we need to take 2 stops. What I suggest we do is stop at Porsche Silverstone, because they've got Taycan turbochargers, which means we'll stop for 25 minutes. That's not a bad place to stop. You can walk around Silverstone Experience Centre, have a cup of coffee, enjoy the experience. Then it might suggest that we go to Leeds. So it won't take us as the crow flies. It won't take us in a way that a petrol engine would, because we know that every 20 miles there's a petrol station. It is left and right, but our overall journey could be planned to get there.
That way, that's interesting. Now Mary has a good one here. I guess let's call this maybe the last question.
I've got 2
Someone's
sorry,
got
a couple more. Okay, well this one is. So after these 2, hi, are you able to ask if Porsche are investigating any solid state battery technology in order to increase the battery range and capacities?
Okay, so what tends to happen is I tend to stand in front of you thinking that something is amazing and incredible because I've been taught it 3 weeks ago and I think it's the latest technology in the world. If I went to the Weissach Porsche Center, so the Porsche Development Center in Weissach in Germany, and said, guys, I'm super stoked about the Taycan, they'd probably raise their eyebrows and go, dude, it's 8 years old. Like that, we've already figured it out how to make the next car do this, that, and the other. And they'll be in that development stage. So I'm sort of skirting that because I don't know for a fact whether they are doing that, but I would never rule it out with Porsche, because with Porsche, they've got people that are empowered to have a look at everything and try and find a better way. And an example of that would be inner drive. So one of the stories that I've been told about Porsche is there was an intern that was working at a Porsche development center, and they said, right, okay, so we have cruise control, and we now have adaptive cruise control because the car is looking in front of it. We have a camera system that recognizes traffic cameras that says 30, 40, 50, 70. We have GPS that's telling us exactly where the car is, because that's how satellite navigation works. We have GPS telling us where we want to go and where that topography might be. So whether we're going to climb into the mountains or come out, or we're going to go. So we have a lot of information in this car, or in a car at any one time. What we need is a system that ties it together and create a good experience. So with Porsche Inner Drive, when you set a destination, when you set where you're going to go, you might set two different types of routes. So I want to arrive there relaxed because I've got a meeting. I want to arrive there with 20 miles in my hybrid charge because it's a no emission zone. So I've got to drive in there. It's using all of these kind of information, and it's encouraging you how to drive. So it knows that there's a car further up the road that is slow. It's easing you off now because that's more efficient than getting to it and braking and then having to recelerate. It's knowing that it can use quite a bit of its energy to get up the hill, because down the hill it's going to recuperate some of its energy. So I guess what I'm saying there is, I hope so. I don't think we are going to bring out a bad sports car in 3 years' time. I think when I go to Mallorca or somewhere glamorous, I'm sure maybe it won't be Mallorca. I don't know, but it'll be somewhere glamorous when they take me and I'll go and drive it. I bet I'll be just as blown away as the first time I drove a Porsche, which was a 2.7 flat six. They will have figured out how to make weight work. They will have figured out how to create performance without it kind of running out at 80 miles and it not being very usable. They really do look at everything.
Mm. And this is the last thing that came up in the chat room, which was from Krista McGowan. I think it's a really nice one to finish on, actually. James, the best point is, in reality, you nearly always charge at home.
So Porsche aren't the only people doing electric cars. Audi, well, we obviously have lots of people in the group. BMW, we have lots of people. So what we tried to do is create a universal charging system, because everyone's going to bring a product out and ask you for your money. Whether it be for us, it might be a Renault Zoe. For my father-in-law, it might be a Cross. For Way, it might be, I don't know what we're going to bring out next. Maybe an electric Boxster or something. Or maybe, But for everyone, the universal energy is going to be electricity. So we would like you to use Porsche charging. Why? Well, because we'd like you to visit the Porsche Centre, because the Porsche Centre is big and it's got loads of Porsche in it, and we would hope that you feel like you could come and visit. We'll give you a coffee. It's 20 minutes of your time. We can absolutely make that work. But in the future, you can charge anywhere. You can charge at Waitrose, Lidl. You can charge at, shopping centres, John Lewis. Everyone is going to give you the opportunity to charge. And I think the more people that get on board, the easier everything will become, because they're talking about charging hubs in London having like 10 fast chargers and a gym and a breakout room where people can use Wi-Fi and get on with the office work and all that sort of stuff. Just the future.
That was kind of my question I wanted to ask you, when you were saying that you can pull into Silverstone and you can charge up there and you can visit their Silverstone experience. Does that come free with the charge? Does something come? Is there a caveat or a benefit for you to charge for that wonderful, expensive vehicle that you've spent all that money on? Do you get those benefits when you get charged?
Okay, so in being a customer of Porsche, what we would hope you feel is you feel valued in every Porsche Centre. So I've met lots and lots of people when I've been working for Porsche, and I have to say, I like every single one of them. Even though we're a big company, we're quite a small team. So there's 42 centres in the UK. And if you drove into any one of those centres, you would meet, I would hope, someone probably just like me, friendly, very easy to talk to. We're enthusiastic about cars. We're enthusiastic about customer service. We're enthusiastic about sharing what we know and learning what you know. Nothing is off the cards for us. In many conversations with customers that have been around the brand longer than I have, I learn more. You know, we get just as excited running out to a 98 registered 2.5 Boxster. You know, tell me about this. This was one of the first DR5s and all that sort of stuff. As we do sharing like we are today about, you know, 80% of the braking isn't actually done by the brakes. It's actually done by the engine working in reverse. So all it's a community, and you can engage or disengage. It's no problem. You can come to the charger, pop your charger, get on with a few emails, don't say hello to anyone, no problem. You know, that is absolutely all right. Or you can pop it on the charger, come in, have a latte, say hello, you know, have a look around the showroom, see some history, see some future, whatever you want.
Well, and I think, James, actually, it's interesting about the Porsche community. I mean, you know, I drive petrol cars, and yet I've always been welcomed at the centres, and not just you, Guildford, anywhere I've gone, I've always been welcome. I've always felt I could come in normal times, have a coffee, have just a chinwag, and, you know, yeah. So basically, you don't ban petrol heads, which is great. I'm in for that.
Don't ban anyone. One of the most powerful things I think that I can share with you is that I fell in love with Porsche when I was about 6. Don't know why. Nana told me. I think my Nana just said to me one day, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And I said, "Right, I'm going to be a pilot." She said, "What else are you going to do?" "I'm going to own a red Porsche." No idea why. Just had no idea really what a Porsche was or what it represented. I just saw that red shape with the big black kind of fin and the Fouche wheels. Obviously now I know what that car is, and now I know why I love it.
And the sound.
Yeah.
That sound you could just tell anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that's the fascination with us. The Porsche brand can be whatever it can be. You know, for my son, who is now 9, his entry point into Porsche was the first time I brought a 2.7 Boxster home. So he is disappointed every time I bring a Porsche home and the roof doesn't come off, because why does the roof not come off? You know, for my youngest child, you know, the first Porsche she saw was a Taycan, and so she loves the fact that a car is completely electric. And we also have different languages of technology. You know, my youngest daughter, I have 4 children. My youngest daughter expects everything just to be a touchscreen, so she'll touch anything. You know, just trying to make it happen. If it doesn't happen, she'll say, "Hey Siri," whatever, trying to get it to tell it to do something. Whereas my dad, I remember my dad's Peugeot 405. He used to get up 2 hours early before work just in case it didn't start. Did
it have a choke? Did it have a choke? Do you remember the choke? Yeah. I think all of our formative years are the cars we grew up with, and the experiences we had with them, and the smells we had with them, and the choke,
exactly right.
The dip light on the footwell, and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly right.
Significant as to that is now all touchscreen and everything like that. And the technology explaining now is all the stuff that was in footwells or the sights, the smells that we had as we were growing up, and those are significant with our growing up with the cars.
Exactly right. Renaud.
Well, listen, I'm well aware that we are now 2 minutes over, and
you need your chips. You need your fish and chips, Way.
I've had a text here from the pub to say, "Do you want skinny fries?" And I was supposed to collect at 7:30, and I pushed him to 20 to 8. So you have to book a slot. So,
well, thank you, everyone. Yeah,
it's been wonderful. Really fun, really interesting. I mean, I love the Porsche brand, as you know, but I always enjoy stuff like this because you always learn something more. And you know, it's gone extremely well. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And I urge you, when we come out of this lockdown, go over and see James at Porsche of Bournemouth. And I know you'll have a nice cup of coffee, be welcomed by the team there, and just have a look at the cars and go and have a play with them.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, James. Thanks, Way. Good night.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.
See you. Bye.